Hare Krishna, all devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So we'll hear two main themes today. One is about wonderful prayers offered by Markandeya Rishi to Narnarayana Rishis. That's number one. And then we'll start to hear reciprocation from Supreme Lord also. Supreme Lord also speaks in the next section, in the next chapter. So, Mataji, when are you ready? You can start, Mataji.
I'm ready, Prabhuji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Today we'll continue reading from 12th canto, chapter 8, entitled Markandeya's Prayers to Naranarayana Rishi, text 40 onwards. Sri Markandeya said, O Almighty God, how can I possibly describe you? You awaken the vital air, which then impels the mind, senses, and power of speech to act. This is true for all ordinary conditioned souls and even for great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. So it is certainly true for me. Nevertheless, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. Text 41. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, these two personal forms of yours have appeared to bestow the ultimate benefit for the three worlds, the cessation of material misery and the conquest of death. My Lord, although you create this universe and then assume many transcendental forms to protect it, you swallow it up, just like a spider who spins and later withdraws its web. Text 42. Because you are the protector and the supreme controller of all moving and non moving beings, anyone who takes shelter of your lotus feet can never be touched by the contamination of material work, material qualities, or type. Great sages who have assimilated the essential meaning of the Vedas offer their prayers to you. To gain your association, they bow down to you at every opportunity and constantly worship you and meditate upon you. Text 43. My dear Lord, even Lord Brahma, who enjoys his exalted position for the entire duration of the universe, fears the passage of time. Then, what to speak of those whom Brahma creates the conditioned souls? They encounter fearful dangers at every step of their lives. I do not know of any relief from this fear except shelter at your lotus feet, which are the very form of liberation. Text 44. Therefore, I worship your lotus feet, having renounced my identification with the material body, everything else that covers my true self. These useless, insubstantial, and temporary coverings are merely presumed to be separate from you, whose intelligence encompasses all truth. By attaining you, the Supreme Godhead and the Master of the Soul, one attains everything desirable. Text 45. O my Lord, O Supreme Friend of the conditioned soul, although for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this world, you accept the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance which constitute your illusory potency. You specifically employ the mode of goodness to liberate the conditioned souls. The other two modes simply bring them suffering, illusion, and fear. Text 46. O Lord, because fearlessness, spiritual happiness, and the kingdom of God are all achieved through the mode of pure goodness, your devotees consider this mode, but never passion and ignorance, to be a direct manifestation of you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Intelligent persons thus worship your beloved transcendental form, composed of pure goodness, along with the spiritual forms of your pure devotees. Text 47. I offer my humble obeisances to Him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the all pervading and all inclusive form of the universe, as well as its spiritual master. I bow down to Lord Narayana, the supreme worshipable deity appearing as a sage, and also to the saintly Nara, the best of human beings, who is fixed in perfect goodness, fully in control of his speech, and the propagator of the Vedic literatures. Text 48. A materialist, his intelligence, perverted by the action of his deceptive senses, cannot recognize you at all, although you are always present within his own senses and heart, and also among the objects of his perception. Yet, even though one's understanding has been covered by your illusory potency, if one obtains Vedic knowledge from you, the supreme spiritual master of all, he can directly understand you. Text 49. My dear Lord, the Vedic literatures alone reveal confidential knowledge of your supreme personality, and thus even great scholars as Lord Brahma himself are bewildered in their attempt to understand you through empirical methods. Each philosopher understands you according to his particular speculative conclusions. I worship that supreme person, knowledge of whom is hidden by the bodily designations covering the conditioned soul's spiritual identity. Chapter 9. Markandeya Rishi sees the illusory potency of the Lord. Text 1. Sutta Goswami said, the Supreme Lord Narayana, the friend of Nara, was satisfied by the proper glorification offered by the intelligent sage Markandeya. Thus the Lord addressed that excellent descent of Bhrigu. Text 2. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Markandeya, you are indeed the best of all learned Brahmanas. You have perfected your life by practicing fixed meditation upon the Supreme Soul, as well as by focusing upon me, your undeviating devotional service, your austerities, your study of the Vedas, and your strict adherence to regulative principles. Text 3. We are perfectly satisfied with your practice of lifelong celibacy. Please choose whatever benediction you desire, since I grant your wish, may you enjoy all good fortune. Text 4. The sage said, O Lord of Lords, all glories to you. O Lord Achyuta, you remove all distress for the devotees who surrender unto you. That you have allowed me to see you is all the benediction I want. Text 5. Such demigods as Lord Brahma achieved their exalted positions simply by seeing your beautiful lotus feet after their minds had become mature in yoga practice. And now, my Lord, you have personally appeared before me. Text 6. O lotus eyed Lord, O crest dwell of renowned personalities, although I am satisfied simply by seeing you, I do wish to see your illusory potency by whose influence the entire world, together with its ruling demigods, considers reality to be materially variegated. Text 7. Sutta Goswami said, O wise Shaunaka, thus satisfied by Markandeya's praise and worship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, smiling, replied, so be it, and then departed for his hermitage at Badrikashrama. Texts 8 and 9. Thinking always of his desire to see the Lord's illusory energy, the sage remained in his ashrama, meditating constantly upon the Lord within fire, the sun, the moon, water, the earth, air, lightning, and his own heart, and worshipping him with paraphernalia conceived in his mind. But sometimes, overwhelmed by waves of love for the Lord, Markandeya would forget to perform his regular worship. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mati. So it's a wonderful section. Whenever we hear devotees' prayers, is wonderful because they're sharing their relations, personal relations, in glorification of the Lord. While they're offering praise to Supreme Lord, they're lessons for us actually. So the context here was Markandeya Rishi was worshipping the Supreme Lord, and then Supreme Lord appeared as Narayana Rishi. So he offered obeisances, we discussed, and he offered a place to sit and wash their feet, like that. All those things we discussed. And then now he's offering prayers. I think today's from text 40, I think. Yeah. So he's offering prayers. So these 10 verses are beautiful prayers. So let us see. So the essential theme of these prayers is greatness of the Supreme Lord, how our only and the dangers of the material world, our only shelter is Supreme Lord. So we need to worship Supreme Lord in his personal form, like that. Those are the essence of this theme of the prayers. So going to text 40, he's saying that how can he possibly glorify you fully like that? That means no one can fully glorify the Supreme Lord because Supreme Lord's potencies and appliances are unlimited like that. So that is the first point he starts with. Basically, he says, you awaken the vital air within us, and that vital air is what makes the mind, senses, and power of speech to work and all that. Not only for all conditioned soul like us, but even for demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Even for them, you were the one who is acting for them like that. So, and then he says, you, nevertheless, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. So, Sunachikra Thakur writes a beautiful commentary for this. Basically saying, you are giving the power to do everything, even to worship you, you are giving the ability for us to do. But then, even though we are worshipping with the ability that you give only, nothing special we have special. Whatever you gave from that only we're worshipping. But still you become controlled by the love of the devotees like that. So that's what is glorifying him like that. That's what I say. That's what he meant by you become the intimate friend of those who worship you like that. Now text 41. He's glorifying the Supreme Lord as the one who creates the material world, who uh, maintains the material world, and who destroys the material world or annihilates the material world like that. So that means, yeah. So now that is one aspect of this verse. Second aspect is that is one reason he comes to protect the through the different forms. He comes to protect, like for example, Matsya Avatara, Kurma Avatara, like that. Another thing is you came as these two personal forms of yours, like Nara and Narayana. You appear to bestow the ultimate benefit of the three worlds. What is that? Cessation of material misery and conquer of death. So basically, uh, Vishnu Chakravarti writes in the commentary that he is coming not only just to protect the material world, but is actually appearing in a personal form so that his devotees can personally worship him and he becomes controlled by their love of the mature bhaktas like that. That's the point Vishnu Chakravarti makes. So the two reasons he comes like that. So now text 42. In this verse, he is describing a few things. One is um, anyone who takes shelter of your lotus feet is glorifying the lotus feet of Krishna. Anyone who takes shelter of the lotus feet, your lotus feet, can never be touched by contaminations of material work, that is karma, material qualities, guna, or time, kala. So that means what are material qualities that somebody might have, material propensities somebody might have from the past conditioning that we have. But if you become mature in bhakti, if you become pure in bhakti, then all those things will not affect such a person like that is describing. That is the glories of taking shelter of Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Now, next he says, now uh, it's not that only people are contaminated by these things, guna or kala or karma, they worship you. No, actually, even great sages who understood the essential meaning of the entire Vedas, they also offer prayers to you. So it's not only those people who are still at lower stages, but even great sages who learned Vedas essence also worship you like that. Pray, offer prayers to you. Now the third thing is, why do they want to do that? Even though they are so great, why do they want to do that? Because they love to have your association. They want your association. That's why they bow down to you at every opportunity and constantly worship you and meditate upon you. That means even great souls offer worship to you uh, and devotion service because they love to have your association. They are longing to have your association like that. Now going to 43. So now he previous verses he glorified, and now he says what is the glorification, what is the benefit of achieving Krishna's lotus feet, and who all do that, and how do they do that through devotion service like that. Now 43rd verse, he talks about the danger of the material world and how his lotus feet are the only remedy like that. He's saying Lord Brahma, even Lord Brahma fears the passage of time. Then what to speak of people who are created by Lord Brahma, like all of us conditioned souls, we get we encounter fearful dangers at every step of life. So that's the danger in the material life portion for all of us. Then he says the only relief is by taking shelter of your lotus feet, which are the very form of liberation, like that he describes. So the point is that by taking shelter of lotus feet, we can all the material existence and its dangers can be avoided. Like that is a remedy for the material existence and dangers. Now, 44th verse, he describes now that he glorified in last two verses the glories of lotus feet. What is the benefit of taking shelter of lotus feet? He says, therefore I worship your lotus feet, like that. And by doing what? By giving up the identification with the material body and mind. Misidentification. By giving up the misidentification with body and mind, I take shelter of your lotus feet and worship your lotus feet, like that is saying. And then, yeah, basically, he's taking shelter of lotus feet, that positive aspect. Negative aspect is rejecting every other shelter that is there in the material world, like that. Yeah. And then he's saying, by attaining you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains everything desirable. That means we don't need to think that there is something else that's missing by taking shelter of only Krishna, like that. Maybe if I worship this also, this demigod also, I'll get something. Maybe I worship this, I'll get some. We don't need to think like that. When we worship Krishna, we'll get everything we need, like that. So the purport has, even though it's two sentences, purport is very beautiful. One point is that when we identify with our material body and mind, then we have tendency to enjoy everything, tendency to see everything for my enjoyment, like that. But if you get to the transcendental knowledge, understanding that I'm a spirit soul and I'm part and parcel of Krishna and I'm servant of Krishna, then that enjoyment tendency goes away. There's a point being made here. This is possible with the spiritual knowledge. Now going to the 45th verse. Now he glorifies the mode of goodness and how that is helpful for those who desire liberation, like that. So in this verse is describing, O my Lord, although for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation, you accept the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, like that, which constitute your illusory potency because they're part of Maya or material nature, Prakriti. You specifically employ the mode of goodness to liberate the conditioned souls. That is the point here, main point. The other two modes simply bring them suffering, illusion, and fear. So, moha, bhaya, and sokama in one sense. So basically, the point here is mode of goodness is help us to elevate our consciousness, whereas mode of passion and ignorance are taking us to suffering, illusion, and fear, like that. That's the main point here. So, interestingly, Prabhupada clarifies that even though Krishna takes the form of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva to run the material world, but only Vishnu is capable of giving liberation, like that it describes. And that is easily possible through mode of goodness, cultivation of goodness, like that. Then, and Prabhupada recommends, BBD Purport recommends, one should become firmly situated in the mode of goodness and live peacefully on the spiritual platform. The essence of goodness. So it is interesting statement. Generally, we hear about mode of goodness is like regulation, cleanliness, planning ahead of time, like that kind of things, right? Here, a wonderful statement is made, which is true. It says the essence of goodness is to renounce selfish interest in all one's activities and thus dedicates one's entire being to Supreme Being, Lord Krishna, who is the source of our existence. So selfishness is usually biggest characteristics of mode of passion. So that's why it is described in the other ways without having any selfish desires, but doing it for Krishna. That will promote the goodness and even go to transcendental goodness or Vishuddha Sattva, like that also. Now going to text 46, he is glorifying that, yeah, how the truly intelligent people worship the Supreme Lord form in the pure transcendental goodness form, like that they worship like that. That means not the demigod worship, but Supreme Lord worship like that. He's saying, because fearlessness, spiritual happiness, and kingdom of God are all achieved through the mode of pure goodness, your devotees consider this mode to be a direct manifestation of you. That means they see goodness in terms of a manifestation of Krishna. That means it is a helpful uh, medium for us to go towards Krishna, to worship Krishna like that. And you see, intelligent persons worship your being, your loved transcendental form, composed of pure goodness, along with the spiritual forms of your pure devotees. 2 points. One is Supreme Lord's form is transcendental, is beyond the material mode of goodness also, transcendental goodness. And then, so they were intelligent people worship you in the Supreme Lord form, not in the worship any other form like demigods like that. And then they also worship the spiritual forms of your pure devotees, like that is describing. Mm, yeah. And then going to the next verse, 47th verse, he offers obeisance to Supreme Lord, glorifying his finally. He says he is the all-pervading and all-inclusive form of the universe. He is a spiritual master, the supremely worshipable deity. Mm, yeah, like that he glorifies and offers obeisances. Now going to 48th verse is interesting. He says the Supreme Lord can be known only through Vedic knowledge. That is the point made in 48th verse. He says the materialist, even though he must have high intelligence, but because he cannot recognize you, even though you are present within his own senses and within his own heart, and also in the objects of his perception, like that. So the same point is repeating from the previous section, where if somebody is in bodily conception of life, they cannot understand Supreme Lord like that. They cannot recognize Supreme Lord in their life like that. That's one point. Now, even though such a person's understanding is covered by your Maya, if one obtains Vedic knowledge that's coming directly from you, then they can directly understand you. So through Vedic knowledge coming from you, they can understand you. That's the point he's making. In the next verse, he says, actually, it's very, very difficult to understand you even through Vedas like that. So we'll hear that one. 49th verse. He's saying, Vedic literatures alone reveal contextual knowledge of your supreme personality. And thus, even great scholars like Brahma are bewildered. Basically, the point here is made is, if somebody is trying to understand Supreme Lord through empirical philosophy, through empirical understanding, through speculation, then even though they read all the Vedas, they cannot get the understanding. They cannot get the indirect meanings given in the Vedas also. So that's the one point being made. But then how do you know him? How do we understand him through Vedas then? By I worship the Supreme Person, knowledge of whom is hidden by bodily designations. So by worshiping the Supreme Lord, we can understand the real meanings of the Vedic knowledge, like that is describing basically. The purport clarifies the same point, that people who try to understand through speculation, because they are covered by different types of material modes, each person speculates in a different way and comes to different conclusion, which is not in alignment with Vedic conclusion, like that it describes. But if somebody worships the Supreme Lord, and giving up this kind of speculation, giving up the fruitive activity, which is what we know, Anyabhyasada Sunyam, Gnana, Karmadi, Anavritam. So without Gnana, without Karma, then they can understand you properly. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult even to understand with Vedas like that. If somebody is still in the fruitive activities and speculation like that. So this is a very important principle for us to also apply, because sometimes we think, anyway, I'm doing bhakti, I will do something also a little bit of this so I can get something like that. So we should, if we want to progress quickly, we need to give up the gnana and karma tendencies, fruitive activity tendencies. Now that comes to the chapter 9. Chapter 9 is titled Markandeya Rishi sees the illusory potency of the Lord, that Maya potency of the Lord. So now, After Markandeya Rishi offered these beautiful prayers, uh, Lord Narayana, along with he was interesting couple of verses. He says he was satisfied by the proper glorification offered by the intelligent sage Markandeya. So Supreme Lord is very satisfied when we offer proper glorification by with the proper understanding. That is one principle we can learn. So we can also offer when we offer prayers, we only don't need to ask Krishna, please give me this, Krishna, please give me this, Krishna, please give me this. Instead of that, we can also learn to glorify the Supreme Lord also, because that satisfies Supreme Lord. And what are we doing? We are trying to please Krishna. That is one of the main essence of our Krishna consciousness, right? That is one more thing. Now, in the next verses also, we'll see what else is Supreme Lord satisfied by. So we know how to please him. He says, Supreme Lord says, you are indeed the best of all learned Brahmanas. You perfected your life by practicing fixed meditation upon Super Soul, as well as by focusing on me through undeviating devotion service. Supreme Lord liked that he's doing undeviated devotion service. That means worshipping only him, not anybody else. And then, interestingly, see, as well as by focusing upon me, your undeviating devotion service, your austerities, your study of the Vedas, and your strict adherence to the regulated principles. Basically, all these things, study of scriptures, doing austerities, strict adherence to religious principles, any other angas of devotion service, is doing it with focus on Krishna only, focus on Supreme Lord only, not for something like that. Sometimes we may do all these things, but with different motivation. The motivation should be to please Krishna. Now, text 3. He says, where Vishnu Chakravarti comments in the purport, he says, he uses plural, we are perfectly satisfied with your practice of lifelong celibacy. So celibacy is also something pleasing to Supreme Lord. Then he says that we is described in the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti commentary, that is referring to himself as Supreme Lord Narayana, and also Lord Shiva and Uma, it seems. Lord Shiva's concept, Uma Devi. So these three is referring to, it seems. That becomes apparent in the next chapter, where we'll hear about how Lord Shiva and Uma Devi appreciate, glorify Markandeya Rishi, it seems. Oh no, actually Markandeya Rishi glorifies them, it seems. That's the next chapter, it seems. That's what purport is saying here. So that's why he's referring to plural we, number one. Is satisfied. Second thing is, please choose whatever benediction you desire. I can grant your wish. Now he's saying singular, I. We are all satisfied, but I can grant the wish. Purport is clarifying that only Lord Narayana can award the highest perfection of life, which is eternal Krishna consciousness. That is the highest perfection, only he can grant. That's why he's saying, I'll give you the benediction. May you enjoy all good fortune, he's saying. Now, after Krishna, in the form of Narayana, asked him, please ask me some benediction, then what does this Markandeya Rishi ask? That is from next verse. He's saying, oh Lord Achyuta, you remove all distress for the devotees who surrender unto you. So that's what he's glorifying. Thus you allowed me to see you. That is all the benediction I want. So he starts with saying that I got the darshan of your full form. That itself is the greatest benediction, like that. That is how he's starting. He'll place a request later on. So the next verse he says, demigods such as Lord Brahma achieve their exalted position simply by seeing your beautiful lotus feet. Just by seeing your lotus feet, Lord Brahma achieved such a great position. Then, but you have showed me your entire personal form. That means such a great fortune I have, like that is glorifying him. Then text 6 he says, now he is in placing a request. First he said, giving you darshan is such a great fortune already for me. Now he's placing one request before him. What is the request? He says, although I'm satisfied simply by seeing you, I do wish to see your illusory potency. He wants to see his Maya, by whose influence the entire world considers reality to be materially variegated. So by your Maya, everybody is thinking illusory things are all Maya, are reality they're thinking, like that. So the purport clarifies that Markandeya's curiosity to witness Maya was not to enjoy something. He wants to see how the Maya is casting the living entities into illusion. That's the purpose of him asking, it seems, to see how it is messing up all of us conditioned souls like that. Now, text 7, uh, Supreme Lord replied, so be it. Like that he replied, Tateti, so be it. And then departed to Badrikashram, it seems, Narayan Rishi. So it's described Supreme Lord smiled before he's saying, so be it. So why Supreme Lord smiled is given in the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary. He's saying that actually uh, his pure devotees want to stay away from Maya. But this pure devotee wants to see the Maya because actually if somebody has curiosity to see Maya or experience Maya, they may get into sinful materialism also. But in this case, pure devotee himself is asking what to do. Like a father sometimes don't want his son to do, but he will let him do it so that he will experience personally. He will learn the lesson personally like that. So similarly, he's thinking that, okay, you only experience the suffering created by Maya. Then you will say, I want to stay away from Maya like that. That's why he's smiling, it seems, seeing that question like that asked by Markandeya Rishi. Now, text 8 and words is the whole theme of how Markandeya Rishi experiences Maya through the Supreme Lord's mercy on him like that. That's what is starting. We'll just cover the 2 verses today, 8 to 9 verses. He's saying that thinking always of his desire to see Maya, the sage remained and continued his devotion service in different ways, basically. But however, sometimes he was so much ecstatic with his love for Krishna that he would forget to do regular worship also, it seems. So, here purport is also clarifying that Markandeya Rishi did not want to see Maya to fulfill some material desires, but is wanting to see Maya only to understand how it bewilders living entities like that. We'll pause there. Tomorrow we'll see what is the vision that Supreme Lord gives to Markandeya Rishi. What does he manifest before him like that? We'll see tomorrow. We'll pause here. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpata rubhesha kupasantu bevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you, devotees.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Mati?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
that why God smiled, Prabhuji, can you repeat that for me, please?
Okay, I will also send you that verse in the reading so you can also read it. But essentially, in essence, Supreme Lord, pure devotees don't want to see Maya. They want to stay away from Maya. But he wants to see Maya. But there's always a danger when you see Maya. You want to enjoy Maya like that. So now Krishna doesn't want his devotees to do that, number one. Number two, like sometimes father doesn't want child to do something. But big children especially, they don't like to listen to the father. So what you do? Actually, father knows the consequence of it is something wrong only will come. But still he allows them now. Okay, go ahead and try it out. Because sometimes teenagers, especially children, they don't listen if you tell them this is what the consequence like that. So then you let them experience. Okay, this is what happens. Okay, then they will learn the lesson like that. So Supreme Lord is thinking he will also learn a lesson like that. That he will think that okay, no, so he will see the suffering that Maya causes, and they will say, I want to stay away from Maya like that. So with that, that's why smiling is described in the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti commentary. Mati. Make sense?
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Ram, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Prabhuji, there you mentioned that we means Supreme Lord Shiva and Uma means when Mataji was reading, then I was thinking that we means Nar and Narayana.
The purport comment, not me telling, in the purport of the book, Vishwanath Chakravarti commentary says that for us.
Oh, so the Shiva and Uma also were there present when Narayan Rishi gave their darshan to Markandeya
That
Rishi.
is not described here, but they were also satisfied.
Oh,
That much only we are given here. Next
Achha.
chapter has a description about Shiva and Uma, it seems.
Oh, gosh.
We'll get to the next chapter.
And this the point you mentioned that Lord Narayana smiled and says, "So be." Then Mataji asked, "You do see Maya?" Then you remember one of Prabhupada's Leela, that Prabhupada's son wanted to touch the running fan, and Prabhupada prohibiting him, and he was adamant to touch. Then Prabhupada switched off the fan and let him do that whatever he wanted to do. So I remembered that thing.
Nice, Mate. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Mate.
Yeah, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.